We cover the latest topics and trends making waves across the sport and chat with our industry's most prominent leaders, so your golf business stays one step ahead. Welcome to Golf Business Live, powered by Club Caddie. Here's NGCOA CEO Jay Caron, and owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club and secretary of the PGA of America, Don Rea.
All right, good afternoon for all the East Coasters and good morning to the West Coasters patching into Golf Business Live. I'm Jay Caron, CEO of the NGCOA. Welcome to the November 2022 episode of our show, powered by our friends at Club Caddie. Apparently today on the show, I have got a golden guest here on the show, Don Rea. There he is, Vice President of the PGA of America, owner of Augusta Ranch. Talk to us about your special guest today.
Yeah, it's the Ryder Cup, Jay. So did you know, the winning team, obviously like the Stanley Cup, the winning team gets to keep it for a week. And as an officer of the PGA, you're considered part of the official party. So I got it for a week, and I said, how about Veterans Day? Because we always celebrate veterans out here at Augusta Ranch. Didn't realize it was going to be the grand opening of my Top Tracer, but it's going to work out. We're going to have this on display tomorrow for my Top Tracer grand opening. But I do have a question for you, Mr. PGA Associate. Who's on top of the Ryder Cup trophy?
Well, it can't be Samuel Ryder if that would be an obvious answer. Let's just say Mr. Wanamaker.
No, Robin Wanamaker was a department store magnate who I actually call Seth the second coming of Robin Wanamaker because he's a businessman who's showing the value of the PGA professional. But I will tell you, now the club's a little bent because this is the real Ryder Cup. This is no joke. When I took it out of the box, I took a picture of it. I said, hey, I don't know who had it last. I don't know which player had it, but I did not do that. So they're going to have to refurbish that just for the record. But that's actually a great story that I think we should always share with our PGA associates, is that Samuel Ryder was a very successful businessman, Jay, and he actually started the penny packets, little teeny packets of seeds that he would sell for a penny, and he became very wealthy. And he was very philanthropic throughout London, mayor of his town. He was a great man, and at the age of 50, he starts getting diminishing health. His pastor comes to him and says, you should play golf. You need to get outside more. And he actually plays golf with his pastor and loves the game so much that he just starts playing all the time. And he goes, what do I need to get better? And the answer then and now is to get a PGA coach to teach me how to play the game. And so he builds a relationship with a gentleman, PGA member, Abe Mitchell. Obviously, there's a PGA of America. There's PGA GB&I, which we just call them PGA, and we're PGA of America. Abe Mitchell was a PGA golf professional and started teaching Samuel Ryder the game. And Samuel Ryder just loved the game. And he just wanted somebody from Great Britain to win the Open Championship. So, man, he invests a lot of money in Abe to do it. And he starts like, we have to beat the Americans, And so then they come up with, why don't we play a competition against America? And Abe Mitchell and a lot of the other players at the time, Ted Ray, they all come back and say, we don't have the money to go over there. And Samuel Ryder says, I'm going to pay for it. And what's a crazy little story is Abe Mitchell was supposed to play on that Ryder Cup team, but he gets appendicitis, can't play on the 1927 Ryder Cup team for Great Britain and Ireland, but he does play in the next three. But because of the impact a PGA golf professional had on the man, Samuel Ryder, who started the Ryder Cup, he put Abe Mitchell on top of the Ryder Cup trophy. So the answer to that question is that a PGA coach impacts people's lives to the point where it can create 100-year competition, 100-year trophy, and at the top of it celebrating the man who taught him the love of the game. I mean, it's just it's very cool.
I love it. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Had no idea. Very good. You are full of knowledge, Mr. Rea. Well, okay, so besides the Ryder Cup being on location, we started this show in April of 2020, asking kind of what's happening on the ground. And we're going to bring on Seth Waugh, the CEO of the PGA of America here soon, who hasn't been on the show since May of 2020, when things were very different in the industry. So we're looking forward to a chat with him about where we are today and some new challenges, actually. But our ham and egg has always been, hey, what's happening on the national scene and what's happening on the local scene? So talk to us about Mesa, Arizona, and what's happening on the local scene there.
Well, golf is booming, continue to boom. Our top tracer is open. It's kind of a soft opening. Grand opening is going to be tomorrow. We're going to have 21 veterans hitting shots out of the 21 bays and a 21 bay salute, raising money for the National Day of PGA Hope, which is money that goes to, obviously, the Hope program, which is helping our patriots everywhere, a rehabilitative golf program that the Department of Veterans Affairs has enlisted the PGA of America and its professionals to teach veterans in an adaptive way, below the knee, above the knee, PTSD, brain injury, whatever it might be. And it's literally saving lives. We do a boatload of things that change lives, but there's only one thing the PGA does that saves them, and that's PGA Hope. So obviously it's exciting to have this event tomorrow. And but otherwise it's just golf is booming, right? I mean, at Augusta Ranch, we open from overseeding, but I do have my boots on the ground. Hold one second. I shared office with my business partner, and so he's on a call. We got the grand opening happening, but overseeding is obviously a big deal at a golf course in this region. And in 20 years, we've never had seed translocation. Jay, do you know what seed translocation is? I'm
going to guess. Well, trans is from the Latin across. And so I'm thinking you've got different kinds of seeds making their way onto the course, no, what is it?
Wrong. You've got to really study in your PGA associate. That'll come in level 3, Jay, and you'll learn some agronomy tips. But when you overseed, you obviously mow down the Bermuda grass and you plant the ryegrass on top of it, and seed floats. And so until it gets that taproot down, it can move. And it's never happened in the 22 years that Augusta Ranch has been around, but we had a major flash flood 3 days after dropping seed. And so the seed floats and starts moving on the greens. So now we've got little ridges on our greens, and there's really all you can do is slowly top dress, reseed, do all that stuff, but it's very difficult to overcome that. We will. I mean, by January 1, we'll really start banging. But those are the things, right? Mother Nature is she's got her own rules, and so we're battling that a little bit and trying to educate our players that this is why you're seeing ridges. This hasn't happened before, but everybody knows the monsoon type weather we got right at the end of September. So, battling that and educating people. But other than that, I mean, golf is still really excited to see people come back and just want to play, and then obviously see Top Tracer and go, what the heck's that?
Yeah, we're going to certainly follow your story here on the Top Tracer range thing, because there's I want to be able to share the business lessons of this with America and watchers, because, I've been bullish on this. And as I say about the golf industry, before anybody does anything, they want to know and see that someone else has done it first, right? And before they do it, they want to hear the lessons. They want to hear the P&L stories. They want to know all of that before they risk their capital and what have you. And you're one of the early adopters in this, actually. But I'm very bullish that this will be ubiquitous. So, it's a little segue at the upcoming Golf Business Conference. Taylor Show, there we go. Register now at golfbusinessconference.com or ngcoa.org, and you can link over. But I believe we're crafting a session on Wednesday, the last day of the Golf Business Conference and the first day the PGA Show opens, a joint session to go into these golf entertainment stories of building out the business, the practical stuff. What did you learn when you had to deal with a contractor and building out these bays? How much did you invest? When are you going to when do you anticipate recouping that investment, et cetera? We're going to have operators like you. We might have the technology providers on the panel as well. I think this is a great joint session for PGA professionals and owners to be involved and learn everything they can about this. So I'm going to be anxious to hear about your business stories as time goes by, Don. So and I know you're always willing to share. But I was out in your neck of the woods. Was it last week? Last week for the PGA annual meeting. And I was honored to be there and to witness a few things. And I'm going to save a couple things for when Seth comes on, because there were 2 resolutions in particular that passed at the annual meeting that I want to talk about. I think really good stuff here. But one of the highlights of the meeting was the vote of you becoming the vice president of the PGA of America. I was there to witness this, and it was a special moment to see my friend rise in the ranks here. And you made some wonderful comments from the stage. You ran some great meetings, and just we're so proud of you, Don. It was great to be there and to see the PGA in action. I mean, to me, I think the PGA annual meeting is where it's at, and sometimes more so than the PGA show, when you're talking about the business of the organization. What are you guys committing to? And, and so forth. So I've been a guest of that meeting for several years now, and it was really, really wonderful. But talk to us a little bit about your ascension to the VP position here.
It's exciting, right? I mean, it's amazing how fast 2 years goes by. Obviously, as secretary, you're on the membership committee, education committee, employment committee, university committee, getting alignment with the national committees and local. I mean, I feel like we accomplished a lot of really cool things. And now you roll into vice presidency. Really, the governance and the constitution of the PGA of America is pretty solid, because I get all the membership stuff for 2 years, then you do all the finance stuff for 2 years. So, audit committee, finance committee, innovation committee, budget committee. I mean, all of these things are so crazy. And so it's going to be really interesting to learn more about that. Obviously, I've been reading the financials since I was a board member and a secretary, but now to be in those rooms. And I kind of did throw a comment out there like, hey, as a business owner, I never omit those last 3 zeros at Augusta Ranch, because those last 3 zeros are important. But I told Rona, our CFO, like, hey, I'm bringing the 3 zeros back, because I want everybody to know that's not $50, that's $50,000. But at the end of the day, I'm stewarding the PGA members' money. 28,000 men and women. You're an associate, Jay. We're stewarding the money to best use it to better the game and to serve our members. So excited about moving up. I'm excited to talk about those resolutions. They were monumental. But I can't wait to get started as vice president.
Oh, that's awesome. We're excited to have you. So we have to change all of our scripts and all of our language. Everywhere where we recognize you as secretary, we have to now say VP. Great. I know it's not getting to your head. I know you well, but when you become president, I don't know, man. Your head's going to be pretty darn big. It's a big responsibility. I was really impressed with what's going on there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Before we bring Seth on, just a couple of housekeeping as well that I want to mention to owners and operators that will be watching is that in 2023, we will be asking for you to participate in some data collection on the new version of the Pulse Report. We launched the 2022 Pulse Report this year, taking the temperature of owners and operators on a lot of issues, and we're going to do it again in 2023 and collect information soon. So please give to that, into the survey, or if you get called to do an interview, because we do qualitative and quantitative information. We want to see how things are changing in the minds of owners and operators as time goes by on some of these things. Optimism, pessimism about, how they're planning and budgeting and so forth. So stay tuned as well. We're going to bring back the compensation and benefits study in 2023. We'll be collecting data on that, measuring compensation and benefits information across multiple positions at the golf course, golf professionals, superintendents, food and beverage, owner operators, GMs, et cetera. So be on the lookout for that. That's a free report for NGCOA members. Okay, without further ado, in a moment here, I'd like to bring on a friend of NGCOA, Mr. Seth Waugh, who has been the CEO now for a few years. He's definitely not the new guy anymore. He was on the board of directors before becoming CEO. And holy cow, has a lot happened under his watch. And so Taylor, let's bring Seth on. There he is. Seth, it does not look like your home office. Where are you today, my friend? Oh, you're muted.
I am in our Palm Beach Gardens office, the old HQ for the week. Survived a fake hurricane yesterday, which turned out to not be much. And here I am, but it's lonely. We kind of closed the office yesterday for obvious reasons, and today, and I think we overdid it a little bit by closing today, but that's all right. It's all good.
Yeah, we're up here in Charleston, and it's rainy and windy, and they already closed schools for tomorrow because of wind and rain. I'm like, what's happening? We don't need to close schools for this stuff, but, got to take these storms seriously. We saw the havoc that Ian wreaked on golf courses in Florida, that's for sure. So, one of our own board members, Bill Stein, sent me photos that was just unbelievable devastation. So I know it's a real thing when it hits hard. But it's good to have you back on the show, Seth. It has been 2.5 years. May 2020 was when you were on Golf Business Live, when Don and I first launched this show. A month into it, COVID was wreaking havoc on the industry. We didn't know what the hell was going to go on that summer or how it was going to impact golf at the time. Golf courses were closed, a lot of them around the country, that we were working to get back open. But it was a different environment then than it is now. So fast forward 2.5 years, what is your take today on the golf industry and our maybe big issues right now? And I know we'll dive into a few of these, but give us your 30,000 foot view of what's happening in golf.
Well, I've never been invited back to any show twice. So, 2.5 years. I'm flattered to be back. Good to be with you all. Yeah, it's been as Don said, it's been a fast 2 years, but a crazy 2 years. We've had sort of existential threat after existential threat, if you will. Not only us, but society, and including, Ian a few weeks ago, which, as you said, did just enormous damage, sadly, on the west coast of Florida. And we've tried really hard to help our friends there to recover. And we've dipped into emergency relief funds and things, and National Car Rental stepped up and got cars for people that couldn't get them. And so, we always try to be there when everybody needs us most, and we've certainly tried to do that since then. But look, COVID had rocked the world, right? And I think anytime you deal with a crisis, you kind of look at it as, okay, how do we get everybody to the other side of this thing? How do we sort of protect our own and do the best we can? And then, frankly, how do you look at it as an opportunity? The world has changed, and what can we do about it? And at its core, when we were in the height of it all in sort of May of 20, we thought about it and said, well, look, we can be part of the solution, not part of the problem, right? At our core, golf is a walk in the park. And Don and I grabbed our bags and carried, walked on 200 acres. There's not much more social distancing you could have. And the reality is that that's what people needed. They needed to get out of their bedrooms and have something healthy for body and mind. And we approached the CDC and Fauci and got to them and convinced them easily. Frankly, they were all over it that we could be a solution. And as a result, and thankfully, due to really the great work of all our 28,000 that were willing to be the frontline workers on the game, willing to go out there and kind of work and be there. We were able to be the first participation sport back, really the first activity that came back. And worked with the whole industry to come, create back to golf. And so, obviously COVID's been very good to the game, but I like to think it was intentional, right? We put our thumb on the scale and tried to, sort of lead, which I think we did. I think the fact that the first game to be back on TV live also was a huge factor in terms of, encouraging people to play. Number of things, charity out of the box, and that obviously helped, as we always do. That helped, and so golf is in its biggest boom ever, and it continues to be. The numbers have just come out again, and we all assumed that when people went back to work, you'd see a flattening of the curve. And it's flattened, but it hasn't gone down. And in fact, on a weather-adjusted basis, rounds are actually up year over year, which is kind of a miracle, right? Given the pace of growth that we've seen. And so, we're trying to ride that wave, obviously, and make sure it's sustainable. I happen to believe it is sustainable this time. It's not just Tiger bursting on the scene and having everybody buy clubs and kind of play once and stick them in your closet. This is real, and I think it's real for a number of reasons. Again, some things intentional there. We've created an industry-wide effort, as you know, Jay, because you're heavily involved. Make golf your thing, which is the industry effort to do the things we didn't do when we had the first boom in 2000, and make sure that we were intentional about making it sticky and making it sustainable. Also, working really hard to make the game look like the rest of the world, right? Much more obvious way, so that maybe the world will behave a little bit more like and today is what it's kind of all about. And so the numbers look really good. If you look at juniors, they continue to grow. It's about 700,000 played last year, and of that, the really cool statistics are that about 35 to almost 40% of those are girls, which is great. And and we're up, and that's up from I think 15% or so in kind of 2000. So 20 years forward, we really have made a difference. And in terms of kids of color, it's like 25% now are kids of color. And that was up from sort of 5% years ago. So, we really are. We've got work to do. Don't get me wrong, victories, but we really have to move the needle as an industry. I'm really proud of that. So, things are great on a participation level. Obviously, now the professional game has a different kind of existential threat. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit later if you want. But, for the purposes of this call, things are in good shape. We can't, again, touch the money. We've got to make sure we continue to be intentional about it. Our biggest issue now as an industry is supply of labor. We had a demand problem, and now we have a supply problem. And we've got to get at that. We do have some green shoot kind of positives on that front, which I'm again happy to get into. But you all on this call deal with this every day, and you're our biggest audience, right, on this thing. And the good news is we've been talking about it for a while. And last year at our annual meeting, we kind of said we'd shout it from the mountaintop, and we've done that. And there's been lots of articles about work-life balance, and lack of supply, and people needing to have life. And I think the awareness is much higher than it's ever been. I think the behavior is improving. Behavior is a word. Sort of how we're treating our employees is evolving, and pay scales are going up. I think pay is up about 60% over the last couple of years, which is good news and for our people. And so we're advocating, and we don't control those jobs. We certainly try hard to influence how they're being treated. So I'd say that's our biggest issue currently, and it's it's our issue in the sense that it's our people, but it's again every owner out there's issue, because that's your business. You create an experience without the right talent.
Yeah, let's dive into some of those, but I do want to bring up a couple of resolutions and things that happened at the annual meeting. One of the things that happened was that Nathan Carnes was elected secretary of the PGA, and I've known Nathan now for a number of years. Super guy, super guy, and he's been in my ear about the kind of work-life balance issues and these labor issues even before COVID scrambled the formula on things. And so I know this is very important to him, and so it certainly is to us as well. And we're going to talk about that. But I think two of the resolutions I want to touch on, one maybe is a little easier maybe to talk about, but it was the PAT. And this is like the sacred cow of the PGA of America in some ways, because like when I became an associate and I passed the PAT, anytime I go to, whether it's a section meeting or I was at the Low Country chapter meeting here a couple days ago here in NGCOA, or I go to the national, it's like everybody's like, when they find out I'm an associate, they're like, oh, that's great. And usually the next question they ask is about the PAT. It's like that is what gets people excited about the join process. And so the change that was made was, instead of an associate having to shoot a certain number on 36 holes in the same day, you have to come up with a composite score, 2 18-hole rounds, as long as you shoot the required number, which changes based on the slope rating of the course that you play. But you have to have a combined 2 18-hole score to hit that number over a certain period of time. And the case that was made was like, look, this is just to demonstrate, what was the word? Competency. Just, competent. We're not looking to make, tour pros here. And then the resolution passed, and I could certainly sense, and it was pretty, strong majority, but I can certainly sense in the room a couple of quiet head shaking, like, oh, it's getting easier now, right? And I want to use this as an example, not just the PAT, but we have an issue of recruitment and retention, getting more people into the profession, right? And so changing that on the PAT does make it a little bit easier without necessarily sacrificing the competency question, because you still have to shoot a low number. But, it makes me wonder how that can extend to the education side of things. And the reason I ask that is not because I'm struggling through the associate program and finding time to go through the level 1 education, all that. I'm in a different position than a lot of aspiring professionals doing this. But it made me wonder, how many golf professionals are out there not in the PGA who have 20 years of experience behind them, right? Or they've been doing this forever, whether it's, or 15 years or 10 years or whatever it might be. Or when you're trying to attract that diversity we talked about, there could be a lot of women and people of color that have been doing this job of being a golf professional, not in the PGA. Is there any discussion about, I hate to use the word fast track, but where instead of going through some of the portfolio work and all that, that you can demonstrate in some other way, I've been doing this for 25 years. Get me to the test. Get me to the test that I got to take, the knowledge test, or let me show you what I've done through the work I've done over the last 20 years to try to give a different pathway to get more and more and more folks either into the profession or into the PGA of America. Is there any discussion on that side to find a way to get more people in who have already maybe done the work?
Yes, all the above, and I'll let you in as well. But it's the old never fail, to take advantage of a crisis, right? And I think there's in any industry, there's a little bit of I had to walk to school uphill in the snow every day, and you're going to need to do the same thing, right? And clubs tend to once you're in a club, you tend to want to make it hard to get into that club, right? Because you're kind of in. And so I think there's been a natural sort of tendency over the years. And look, we want ours to be the gold standard. PGA professional have to stand for something. So, that education is really important, and life education and sort of continuing education is important to refresh, because we want them to be that gold standard and have the knowledge about trans-pollination or whatever, seeds or whatever it was that Don hit us with. I mean, those are meaningful things that come up in your career, right? And so, yeah, we want that to be the case. On the other hand, we want to sort of always evolve. We want to modernize. We realize that, we learned something in COVID, which was, we can do a lot of education virtually, right? You don't have to do it in person. And we actually accelerated an enormous amount of people that took advantage of going online and opening up our libraries to everybody. And people that couldn't figure out how to get to Port St. Lucie and leave their job, we're now suddenly fast tracking. And so we have this belief that we can make it cheaper and shorter, right? In general. So should it take 4 years, or if somebody can accelerate it, can they do it in 2 or 3 at half the price? Sure, why not, right? And so we should be thinking about all the ways to do that without sacrificing our quality. And the PAT is a great example of that. As you say, it's competency. It's the ability to break 80, right? It's not the ability to make a putt under pressure on the 36th hole, which you obviously did, which is great.
Barely.
But that is the point, right? The point is, can you do something competently where you teach it and be around it, represent it? And so, that's how we're looking at things. I think people have realized supply crunch, that we do need to make it not easier but more accessible, more modern. Looking at our curriculum and okay, it teaching all the right things, but teaching it in the right way. Are we responding to the 22-year-old students who's used to learning in one way, and now we're making them learn in the same way we did 15 years ago, and
Right.
and flipping that model. So and then to your point on the fast track, we're also looking at ways, and these are all at committee levels. So it's not this is when I say we, I mean the association, right? It tends to go through the committees, have their ideas. Staff is a part of that. We make recommendations, and then form plans around it. But somebody who doesn't happen to be a PGA professional but has been in the industry for 30 years, could they have the ability to test out so that they could become PGA professionals, because we'd like them to be. There's lots of name brand teachers that aren't PGA professionals. Does that make sense? Not really. And if they would have a desire, and we can create a path that makes it go back to school but can kind of test out because of their experience, I'm all for that. And I think a lot of people within the association are. We haven't made a decision on that, but those conversations that should be going on are going on and are very healthy, and we'll make great decisions as we did on the PAT around it. And we do it in due course. We're very thoughtful about it. These things don't happen overnight. Some of that's frustrating at times because Don and I tend to be in a hurry, but it makes sense, right? Kind of, we've been doing something for 100 years. You kind of want to do it in the right way if you're going to, as you change things. So we're, I think we're, sort of the old John Wooden, be in a hurry, but don't rush. Right. And we're with this, current supply crunch, we're definitely moving faster than we have because we need to. And that's the response to, what's going on.
So, and part of a comprehensive look at how you grow the membership, how you grow the profession and so forth, has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Seth disappeared on us. Let's see if he comes back. There he is. Okay, great. All right. So
I was told my audio was choppy, and I was trying to make sure.
It's a little choppy. But you might want to get a little closer to it. Maybe it'll pick up on you better. But one of the things that I thought was so fascinating at the annual meeting was witnessing the process of a constitutional amendment happen, at the PGA, which, you put in when you're addressing a constitutional change, it's like, oh gosh, sacred, like, what do we, this is really, really important here for changing the Constitution. And there was a resolution to adopt a statement in the Constitution, I'm paraphrasing here, that essentially professes that the game and the profession need to be open to all, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation. And there was a kind of a list of these variables and others. So it kind of leaves the door open for, variables down the road that we, find are important. And on day one, when there was a straw poll taken, on this this new resolution to change the Constitution to have this inclusion statement, it was going to pass the supermajority that was needed to vote, but it wasn't a unanimous in favor straw poll vote. I guess there are some people that probably would thought, we can work on this, but why does it have to be in the Constitution? Was probably some thinking, in the room. And then the day of the vote, the actual vote that was taken, you have the microphone where members can come up and say a few words. And the first person that came up to the mic was Jim Remy, former president of the PGA up in Vermont. And he's the prototypical look of a PGA professional, older white male, that he spoke in favor of this resolution. And not only that, he put a challenge to the room to make it unanimous. And that was like, wow, okay, to go from probably 80% supporting it the day before in a straw poll vote to 100% unanimous. I was thinking, wow, this is going to be interesting to see how this works. And then MG Orander goes up there, who I know very well. MG is a golf course owner and operator, past president PGA of America, as the first Jewish person to be president of the PGA of America. And he told his kind of testimony about that and how he used to enjoy going to the archives at Palm Beach Gardens and looking at these old documents. And he kind of put the call out that, look, 50 years from now, people should be able to look at the archives of the PGA and see that we voted unanimously in favor of this. And Kathy Harbin gave an impassioned speech the day before that really, I think, got people interested in movement, gave essentially the microphone to those people of color that are in the PGA of America to talk about this, and women and so forth. And it's just, by the end of the vote, no cliffhanger here, the vote was unanimous in favor of it. And it was an enormous deal that I thought was this cathartic moment. If you look at the arc of history, where there is a history of exclusion and segregation and racism and so forth, to have this in the Constitution, unanimous support of it, it was really heartening to see that. And so I don't know how much work had to be done behind the scenes or if it was capturing the emotion in the moment. Don, you were there, obviously. Maybe, Don, you speak up and tell us, what did you feel in that moment where this was included in newly included in the Constitution?
Well, I think it's all about a strong committee system. And any association that's representing members, 28,000 men and women, I mean, that's where the committees kind of come up with this. And this started in the membership committee. Everybody was on board about it. The board of directors could have voted on this, but we didn't want to. We wanted to take it to the delegation. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew this is what we thought was important. And I think it's really just crossing over to inviting instead of welcoming. I think our game's always been very welcoming on every level. Hey, come play. Anytime you want to play, give me a call. That's not an invitation. And I think, us putting that in our Constitution, specifically inviting everybody. Before we were welcoming, now we're inviting. And it was cool to hear the room. It was cool to see democracy in action. I mean, once again, we're not afraid of resolutions at the national level because they make us better. Every section can change their bylaws, at the section level and the chapter level. And at the association level, we have the annual meeting and we do it that way. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, like I said, it was a culmination of many things, Jay. And it was one, very proud of where the membership committee came up with this idea, bounced it off our core committees, the membership and education, employment, university, to make sure there was alignment, and then bouncing it off the board to make sure we didn't miss anybody, make sure it said what it said. We wanted it to make a statement, but at the end of the day, we also just wanted to tell the delegation, what do you think? And so the power of the microphone, you're right. I think Kathy did an amazing job, and so did MG and Jim. But it was a cool moment, and I think it will be recognized. We have such amazing things. We have Frisco, and that's where you can see our campus and what we're all about. And you've been there, Jay. And I mean, it's going to show everybody who we are. And now it's on paper, and I think it's amazing.
Seth, what about you? Your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, to your question of, did it just happen, or did it take, was there a lot behind the scenes? There was an awful lot behind the scenes, and there was, a fairly simple sentence, right? And one, everybody would just say, well, that's easy, right? But at the end of the day, where you say it and how you say it matters. And we felt strongly that it should be in the Constitution as our document, our living, breathing, document, right? And not just a statement to, the ether, right?
Right.
And that's important. And so it took, to our point earlier and Don's point, like it took, years to sort of make that happen because we are changing the Constitution, right? And that's a big deal. And I thought I've had a number of great moments in my 4 years, nothing cooler than that, right? I mean, to have it go unanimous, everybody's sort of, waiting for the tally. I was really proud. I mean, that's my override. It was just pride, kind of everybody there and the association, how it evolved.
Yeah, we
had a Caucasian only till 1961. We got a lot in our history to not be proud of. In the last 25 years, I think we've got an awful lot to be proud of in terms of being a leader on this, and it's terrific. So, and the other moment, Susie, becoming the first female president. I remember being in the room for that. That was a very you get the chills kind of moment, and this was another one. It was really cool.
It's good to see, and I know. You're doing a lot of work on workforce development and, raising the next generation of PGA professionals and recruiting them into the organization. And this plays a role in that, because we often say we want golf to look like America and so forth. You want the PGA of America to look like America and these things. And these things are important because people dig through and say, how important really is this stuff to you? And when you can point to your Constitution, then that's incredible. That's incredible to have that foundation and that value in there. But so let's talk a little bit more about that workforce development and what's happening here. And because you and I, we run associations in I would say one of the most fragmented industries possible, right? Not only that, I like to say we are second to the church as far as our speed of change usually as an industry. So you have fragmentation and a slow-moving kind of industry when it comes to change, right? Because tradition is usually a watchword of the golf industry, rules and traditions. What do you think it's going to take to get this industry practicing progressive workplace culture, practices, operations to really make that difference? Because we can talk about it at an annual meeting. Golf Digest can publish an article about the trials and tribulations of being a club pro, which are very real. The burnout factor and these things really, really concern all of us. And so, but this is a comprehensive, complex issue. That's not just a matter of, hey, let's launch a program and let's put it out there nationwide and that'll be the salve for the issue. What do you think that we need to do as industry leaders to try to make real change in that, where we have this problem where demand for golf has gone through the roof. So that means facilities are busier than they ever have been. At the same time with labor shortage, it's not like a lot of other industries that were hit hard by COVID, where they saw a reduction in income. So the shrinking of the staff might have kind of paralleled what was happening in their business, where we went in the other direction and employment went in the opposite direction, right? And so what are we going to do as an industry to really try to make this work?
Well, all the above, right, is the answer, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But I think, Don's lived it in real life, and you have too, Jay. Is if you think about the last 25 years of the game, right, and when it sort of was in its lull, if you will, that you're trying to attract people to the game, and so you have a few levers you can pull. One is you have to compete on the quality of your product, right? So you're going to continue to invest in your golf course because that's kind of what you have to compete on, is that quality. Obviously price, always being a part of that. And then you're competing on experience, and sort of, so you're trying to buff up your F&B and your pro shop experience, and whatever it might be, in order to attract people. If you're a private club, you're trying to make membership more interesting by having pickleball and whatever else might be sort of attractive in that sense. And the thing that got squeezed in all of that was labor, right? Because we had this seemingly endless supply of people that love the game, that come into it and work for sort of below minimum wage, in terms of hourly, where they ended up in hourly, and work 100-hour weeks, and because of love of the game. And what we've done is kind of ruin their love of the game by sort of taking advantage of their love of the game to a certain degree. So now what we're faced with, again, I'm a markets guy, right? And you had a demand problem, you now have a supply problem, and not only facing a supply problem in our biggest spike in demand that we've ever seen, but you're having a global labor shortage as well, and you have a generational factor in here too, which is that and rightfully so, the generations below are wanting to have meaning in their life, and sort of, they care about things that we all should care about, but saving the planet and making and having experiences rather than making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And that's a really healthy thing, I think, to a large degree for society, but we all have to kind of deal with it, right? And so back to sort of your question about the PAT and kind of what we're doing on membership tracks, it's the same thing, right? Like, we've got to make it, more financially attractive. And when I say we, it's an industry. It's not me, right? Like, we can do this in Frisco. And to Don's point, we finally have, a shiny example on the hill, right? Where we can sort of practice what we preach, right? Where we create, a better balance in life for our people. We pay them, sort of what it takes to keep them happy and employed, and create the training and sort of all the stuff that we've talked about, as a laboratory. There is stuff that we're absolutely committed to doing, right? That it is the physical embodiment of everything we talk about every day in our mission. And now we got to live it, right, in every form. And so we want to be that example to the industry of how to do it. I think, frankly, the industry has to kind of change how they think about pay to a certain degree. I think you've got to create more incentives-based stuff, right? Like, so if you're a club that wants to sell memberships, which is probably a bad example right now because everybody's, has a waiting list, but, you should incent your people to
Right.
sell memberships. If you want to have, max out on your rounds of golf, then you should, incent them to do that. If you want to max your F&B, like, whatever it is, like, create incentives for, certainly your GMs and your directors of golf, but down the line where they can pass it out. So people are creating, behavior, and hopefully creating some wealth to do that, right? By how you think about it. So it's not just how much you pay, it's kind of how you pay, I think,
Yeah.
is is really becoming more important. I think our deferred comp plan will help hopefully in a big way here, right? We've haven't talked about that yet, but as far as priorities for this year, like there's nothing more important than executing that well so that we can roll it out and have that change lives, right? We've got it through the IRS, which is our first part of the miracle, and now we need to kind of execute it in a way that it can. And look, if we can create a wealth creation vehicle for these people, young people that are coming into the industry, and they can compound relatively small amounts of money for 40 years, they're going to end up with somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million that they're going to retire with, which wouldn't have existed before. And so that's a great thing. Healthcare is a huge problem for everybody. So being creative around that from a facilities perspective, I'm not sure we're going to be able to solve that nationally. We've kind of improved it around the edges, but it's so hard to go across state lines that I'm not sure we're ever going to find the silver bullet like I think we have in deferred comp. But we'll keep looking. But I think those kinds of things. And, not that they're an example for everything, but, Augusta has always had two pros, right? Two head pros. And I never really knew why until it was explained to me that, Jack Stevens, when he was looking at it, said, I want somebody here 24/7, but I also know that's impossible for you. And I want you to have a life, and therefore you're going to have a partner. Is that perfect for every facility? Not necessarily, but it's an interesting idea, right?
Well, let's take that for a second, because it's a very tactical thing, and I know Don at his facility moved a lot more people on the hourly pay structure, right? And so owners and operators are very tactical. They want to know what has someone done specifically in their operations, and having two pros and working maybe shifts or figuring out their schedules. Those are the kinds of answers that I think owners and operators need to know. They want to hear, Don, you moved everybody to, all these people to hourly pay instead of salary. And they want to know, why did you do that? And how is it turning out? And is that improving this workplace, I want to be compensated for the time I put in at this golf course. And is there any way better to compensate for time than by paying by the hour, right? And so these are the kinds of things that, if they're working, we have to aggregate these ideas, I think, and build them into some kind of seminal resource, that it's like, all right, look, owners and operators, here's how you actually introduce shift work like restaurants do into your operations. Because that may be a complete unknown on how do I do that, right? And they need resources. So I think we probably need to work together. We'll get Red Evans in the conversation and so forth. What does, you can't build a blueprint for the perfect golf course and how it operates, but I think we can probably aggregate a hell of a lot of ideas on what owners and operators are doing to make improvements to the workplace culture. So Don, let's start with you. Like, you changed people to hourly. This is months ago, right? How is that working out? Because, small business owners do a lot of trial and error, right? So is it trial and success, or is it trial and error so far?
I think it's trial and success. I think if you measure it, you can manage it. I mean, we can prove when burnout's going to happen. If golf rounds are going up and golf payroll is staying the same, burnout is inevitable. We've proven that. Jonathan Gold, one of our career consultants, they've created that up in the Northeast area, and it's proven they can actually indicate when a facility is going to have a burned out pro based on that number. And now everybody can get the reserve studies and understand deferred maintenance and remaining useful life, but nobody's looking into people. No one's looking into the deferred maintenance into people, the human capital. And so I think when you start measuring how many hours are your staff working, how many rounds have gone up, I think everybody back in the day, you could ask a golf course owner for sure, what's your percentage of labor to revenue? Mm-hmm. Everybody's looking at that. And now they're probably all gloating, wow, mine's lower than it's ever been. That's not good. That's not good, because what you were operating before was a certain service level. And actually, these new people are coming into the game. They require a little bit more hand-holding because they're new to the game. So I would say getting off salary initially it was a shock to the system for our PGA golf professionals. I assured them that we would evaluate it after 3 months every quarter. And if they were making less because of it, I would pay them more. And it turns out they're all making more. They've limited their amount of overtime because now they still have to get the job done. But if during peak season, they're putting in some more hours, but they're getting time and a half. So they feel a little bit better about it. And so I do think that's part of the answer. I do think that we've identified the issue. The golf pros crisis article certainly identified it. It's real. It's happening. And so now what are the solutions? To your point, you have golf course owners and executives of the best management companies in the world on your board, Jay. And we do have to get along with you and Red and the CMA to say, okay, what are the best practices? Because, okay, we talked about it. How do I get better, Doc? We are the doctors of the industry. We need to start prescribing the medicine that's going to correct this. And it all starts with establishing, what one of your board members said, is that a golf professional working the counter is like the doctor serving as their own receptionist. It's silly. Anybody can work these point of sales nowadays. We need golf professionals. We need people walking the range, working on the first tee, playing golf with members.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we create stickiness. That's how we create loyalty. That's how we create relationship. And so we have to address it that way. I didn't realize, at Augusta National, they handled the head pros that way. Maybe at Augusta Ranch, I should have 2 head pros. I'll certainly look into that because it is interesting and fascinating because I've talked to so many people about this through LinkedIn. And we have to, it's easy. Okay, we've identified it. So how are we going to fix it? So measure it and understand if right now you're a golf course owner and you do those old, those ratios that you've always looked at.
Right.
They're out of whack right now in your favor, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's creating an issue that you're going to face.
Seth mentioned like incentives, like just an example to take that conversation to something practical. What does an incentive program look like as it relates to the tee sheet, to groups and so forth? What does that actually look like? Are you waiting till the end of the year to figure out, did it work out? And, because an owner operator wants to, they're going to be nervous about, do I front load the incentive and pay the incentive as we go? How do I make sure that I'm paying an incentive on new business rather than the tournament that's been coming back here every 15 years? Like these things, I think, stymie an operator. You know what? I'll just rinse and repeat and do what I did last year instead of taking a risk out here. So what we need to do is bring the stories of success. Here is what I did at this golf course from an incentive standpoint. Like Will Robbins, to your point, Don, getting the pros out from behind the counter. We had Will Robbins on the show. He's going to be at the Golf Business Conference to talk about that, to help an owner take the risk of moving their pros out into the course with their customers and how that can yield more for the business and the professional. So I think we're doing the right things here, but we need to take some of these concepts and these theories, and say, oh, we should be doing these, and really spell out who's done it and how do they do it and what were the results to lessen the risk reward or make the risk reward calculator a little bit easier for folks when they know that others have done it successfully.
Yeah, and look, I think that's your and my job, Jeff, is to gather a lot of this stuff, right? To share those, because that's what we do, right? Try to make everybody's lives better, right? All your owners, all our members, and we have studied, last, little less than a year ago, which has been a bunch of interviews and a bunch of, kind of case studies. And, you say that we've surrounded the problem. Now we need to actually come up with solutions, right? And that's what we're trying to do, is create this sort of, Bible best practices, which doesn't mean, and it's a menu list, right? It's not like there's one all. It's different solutions for different places. And anecdotally, we're hearing that. We're hearing that, pros are giving, every third weekend you get off, or every third Sunday you get off, for assistance and that sort of thing. I think the market is responding. There's no question. I think it's to a certain degree anecdotal and people figuring it out on their own, as opposed to us being able to share it as an industry to each other. I think that's kind of the next step, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a generational thing. We got work to do for sure. And that resource can evolve over time because workplace values change, right? I mean, you would assume that there's no place in the golf industry for working at home. You got to show up. I'm going to challenge that. Are there jobs in this industry where you could actually do some of it from home, the business development work, the sales and marketing for the golf course, or the yield management, the dynamic pricing, and who's monitoring that? Do they have to be in the golf shop to do that kind of stuff? So I think, there's this assumption that golf is not a place for that new generation of workers that want to be wherever they can be, wherever they want to be, right? I think we need to challenge some of these assumptions and take a look at where we can intersect with where the values have gone and where the economy has gone, where culture has gone. Because I think we'll have to make changes, but I think we also have things at that intersection already for them. We just need to do a better job.
I mean, COVID has proven the first time ever golf is cool, right? Like it is, right? And we should take advantage of that, right? Like we're a really attractive industry. We're $90 billion industry. We work outdoors. We, make people's lives better. We're all about happy. Like, there's a lot of really great things about. We just need to sort of celebrate that and make sure that our employees are, feeling that same sense of joy that their clients are, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep them in the industry, right? Is loving it, rather than, working in a kitchen and not being able to eat, steak because you're cooking it all day long, right? There's got to be some, some joy in here, and that means playing and then some time off and, getting out from behind the counter, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to ask you, what are you most excited about, or maybe the surprise folks are excited about with the PGA of America in the next year, 18 months? What's going to be happening in 2023 with the PGA of America that's exciting?
Well, Frisco and Don alluded to is going to come to life, right? I mean, Frisco is amazing. It's, sort of better than we deserve. And now we've done, to a certain degree, the easy part, which is, building this incredible building, this facility, this campus, which is unbelievable. Now we've got to make it come to life. Like, this is the hard part. Like, how do we fulfill all the promise of that place? And how, because at the end of the day, look, it's all about getting an IRR to our members on, the money invested in it, right? And that is activating it. The senior championship there next spring will really be the true coming out party, and then it's going to come to life. It's going to, it's going to change lives, and it is going to be the town square for Frisco for sure, and may end up being the town square for the game. And not just because we're there, but we're a pretty attractive anchor tenant in that we, care because of our mission. We care about the game at every level. Every championship's going to come there. We're going to North Texas PGA is there, and they're going to activate every day and all the things that they do. We're going to be educating people in our building every day. It's an amazing destination to play golf, but the business of golf. And so, come see it. Like, I know you have. I mean, I'm saying that out there. If you're a PGA member, you're going to have enormous pride in kind of what's happening. You're going to go like, okay, now I get it. Now I get why they've been talking about it, why they've invested in it, and how this can make a difference. Not only in PGA members' lives, but in the entire game. And so if you said, like, what are you most excited about? It's that, and then really launching the deferred comp plan is something I'm really excited about and thrilled about. So yeah, we're in a good spot. And I think we're also very aware of the sort of storm clouds that are around us, right? Like, live is real, and live is making an existential threat to the tour, but we're kind of next up, right? Because we have two assets in the game, and we're going to have a lot of pressure on our purses, and therefore every time we raise a purse, we're giving away our members' money to somebody else's members, right? It doesn't feel very good. And so we're going to have to be really smart and nimble about all the things that are going on. Nobody wants to use the recession word, but we're in one, right? And it's a question of how deep it is. This inflation is real for all of us, so real cost pressures, and we're going to have to be smart about how we manage that, and we will be, but we're going to have to make some hard decisions. So we got great things going on. The game's never been in better shape. I feel like the industry has never been more aligned. I feel like the PGA America and our leadership and our board and membership, and you saw it last week, have never been more aligned. It's not perfect, but that level of trust has never been higher. The level of dialogue has never been better. And I think frankly, our level of delivery has never been higher, right? And our brand has never been better. The game's never been better. I think we're, at an all-time high, but that means, we got to go higher. And I'm excited about that. And Excited to work with Don in his new role, and John and his, and Nathan's an amazing for us. He's a wonderful guy, as you said, and it ran for all the right reasons, and really cares about the place, and I'm looking forward to having some fun with Don and everybody else.
If it's not fun, you shouldn't be doing it. But so Don, the message is it's never been better. So as vice president, you better not screw it up. I think that's the message that Seth is saying here.
Well, and I think everybody needs to look at this trophy a little differently, right? I mean, one, it represents the biggest global competition of anybody else, right? And nobody wins $1 when they win this, but they still play their heart out for it. At the end of the day, on top of it is a PGA coach who taught a man to love the game so much that he started the Ryder Cup. And that's what it's all about. And I think we get back to somebody like that, Abe Mitchell, a PGA golf professional, teaching people the love of the game, we'll be just fine. And then honoring the fact that guy works a lot of hours and they're working super hard. And everybody on your staff is a hospitality staff. They need to be paid more. Measure it so you can manage it, because right now we need to do a better job. So don't forget how important this thing is. And it's not because of the fame. It's because of the passion.
By the way, I love Planner's peanut glove thing. That's a good look.
Almost like Mickey Mouse.
You got to value tradition here. I'm honoring. I was told to wear gloves, so I follow rules.
Yeah, way to thread history to modern times, Don. That was a really special. Man, you're really good with words. I can't wait to hear your speeches on the roads as vice president of the PGA of America in the next couple of years. We're proud of you, Seth. I'm proud to work with you as well on these issues. They're serious issues, and I think all the organizations, like you said, are aligned very well to start tackling some of these together a little bit better with more resources. I think we need to do that. So I look forward to that in 2023. And so thank you for joining the show today. We appreciate you holding down the fort there in Palm Beach Gardens, and we'll see you at the PGA show in a couple of months in Orlando, a golf business conference and the PGA show. We look forward to a full return. It looks like it's going to be a robust event with the return of some major brands. And so it's going to be great to see everybody this January.
It'll be a coming out party again. So it's good luck with Nicole. Hopefully it's as good to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Be involved.
We'll see you next month.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, Seth.